Revenge. It's a dish best served cold, at least according to Ricardo Montalban, and I trust his opinion in these matters. Revenge of the Pink Panther, Revenge of the Creature, Revenge of the Sith, even the Jedi were gonna have it until George Lucas said no. Revenge is a great motivation for a character, or at least an easy one to write around. And usually with an anime or a manga with a battle focus, you have a lot of characters to juggle, so you need to give them understandable and easy motivations to, well, keep track of, really. This brings us to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which, it's kind of a mess, but it's an interesting mess. It's a glorious mess, and I love it. It's one of my favorites. Hero, villain, it doesn't matter. There's a huge menagerie of characters created by Hirohiko Araki, all with unique motivations, designs, and personalities. And we're going to look at one of the secondary antagonists of Part 5. This is the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 5, Risotto Nero's Super Action Statue. We talked about Foo Fighters a few episodes ago, and I told you she was a very subdued character design. Well, that's out the window now. Subtlety is for the weak. Risotto includes 3 different portrait sculpts. He has one basic stoic, he has a mouth open yelling, and then he has this one where he is looking up at you sternly with his bangs flipped up. All of these sculpts are really nice and they're very well detailed and painted. The only issue is the printing on them. I don't know if it's intentional, however, all 3 portrait sculpts have his eyes pointing upward, like he is looking up at something. This means anytime you want him to be posed naturally, he's looking out to the sky, or you have to crane his back forward in a hunched position, so he's looking up and down at you all at the same time. His hat is very interesting, as it's somewhere between a medieval peasant hat and a gesture cap, and the gold bells at the bottom spell out risotto in a mirrored pattern. Risotto has a very eye-catching appearance, as he marries a lot of goth rock aesthetics with medieval design and a little bit of glam thrown in for good measure. He has a lot of great little details on him, like all the gold buckles and belts, as well as his big R belt buckle. This is something you're not going to get from your average JoJo YouTuber. This is something you're only going to get at PDX Toy Collective, because here I go, well, maybe not above, but definitely beyond the Call of Duty. This is the September 1992 British Vogue that has the reference material for Risotto Nero's outfit and pose in his manga debut. Talking loud, turn up the volume with clashing colors and colliding fabrics. You can tell that Hirohiko Araki definitely swiped not only the pose but the general silhouette from this model. I think Araki was very drawn to these striped leggings due to how bold and eye-catching they are, even when compared to a very brash outfit that surrounds it. Just like any prestige Japanese action figure like Figma or Figuarts, he includes a bevy of interchangeable hands. They're all very expressive and well sculpted, and they are all in service in one way, shape, or form to poses he has in the manga. Now on paper, Risotto has pretty solid engineering, however, in function, it is somewhat limited by his outfit design. For example, his flared bell bottoms actually limit ankle articulation, and while this wouldn't be too bad, the sculpt for his shoes is actually very narrow, and the large coat tails are very heavy. This combined actually makes him very unstable to pose. Now, luckily, a majority of the poses he's in the manga have him either floating or in a very precarious position to begin with, so usually if you're posing him, you're going to use the included figure stand. I just wish you didn't need to have the figure stand most of the time. And on that note, for the Wonderfest exclusive piece, he includes a speech bubble. I can't read Japanese, and I don't want to go through the manga to find which speech bubble this is, so, it's a fun bonus, I guess. During his very brief appearance in the series, Risotto gets into a pretty serious fight and loses his foot. To replicate this, you get a blood effect, and you can remove the foot from the joint and insert this bloody stump. If you look closely at the stump, you can see his stand, Metallica. Now, in the series, Risotto's stand Metallica actually lives in his blood, but you do get these larger effect pieces so that you can actually display him with his stand. And to this effect, there is an adapter, so you can attach Metallica to Risotto's back or to the included figure stand. It makes for a really great display considering you don't actually get to see Metallica very much in the anime or manga. The last accessory Risotto includes is this pair of scissors. which is really well sculpted and actually hinged. These scissors are actually a part of Metallica's stand ability, but there's no way to really display it as gruesomely as depicted in the manga. Alright, we keep talking about anime and manga. So what is Risotto Nero's role in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5, Vinto Oreo, or Golden Wind, depending on which way you want to say it? Simply put, Part 5 of JoJo is about a massive internal gang war within the most powerful crime family in the Italian mafia. Our protagonists are gangsters within the crime syndicate Passion, and they are tasked with protecting the Don's daughter, Trish Una. A schism has formed within the family, as the elite assassin team, the Squadra de Execución, feels undermined, underpaid, and underappreciated. This team is led by Risotto Nero. La Squadra wants Trish, as they think that she can lead them to the reclusive Don, or at the very least, use her as bait to draw him out. Now, Risotto himself does not make very many direct appearances in the series. Instead, his presence is felt through the actions of his gang. La Squadra is actively hunting our protagonists throughout Italy, and while this is a shonen battle anime, they're not the main characters, so they get picked off one by one, leaving Risotto as the last man standing. It's not depicted in the anime, and it's only provided in a text supplement. However, we do get a slight peek into Risotto's background before joining the gang. When Risotto was a young man, his cousin was struck and killed by a drunk driver. And while the driver was arrested and sentenced to prison time, this wasn't good enough, as Risotto perceived this as a grave miscarriage of justice and a failure of the system. A few years later, when the driver was released from prison, Risotto hunted him down and killed him in an act of vigilante justice. From that point on, he became a triggerman for the mafia. Now, unbeknownst to Risotto, our team of protagonists have actually defected from the Don at this point in the story. See, they've found out that the Don only wanted to find his daughter so that he could kill her himself, thus securing his identity and severing any links. Essentially, he's just a really shitty dad. Now, the Don still remains in anonymity, and to discover his identity, all of our major players make their way to Sardinia, as this is where the Don met Trish's mother. This includes Risotto as well as the Don's underboss, a very strange young man named Vinegar Doppio. Doppio is bumbling and fumbling his way through Sardinia, and eventually realizes he is being tracked by Risotto, because let's be fair here, he is really conspicuous. It wouldn't take a genius to figure out that Doppio doesn't belong there. Now, Risotto is ready to write off this pink-haired goofy goober as just some dumbass who got caught in the middle of a gang war, but Doppio blows his cover by noticing a stand, as only stand users can see and sense other stands. Knowing this is rapidly going to devolve into a life or death tussle, Doppio tries to bow up and act all tough, but you know, he's kind of a weenie, and Risotto activates his stand, Metallica. Metallica is a colony stand that resides within Risotto's bloodstream. It's completely immobile and manifests itself as these very gruesome and strange little silver cells within his body. These little cells are covered in stitches and have a constant agonized grimace, and whenever they're outside of Risotto's body, they actually moan and wail. Their design is reminiscent and referential to the Harifatners of the Moomins, as well as the yokai art of Shigeru Mizuki. Metallica's ability is very simple, but very effective and versatile, as it is the ability to control iron particles. This control begins in the environment around him, as he's able to manipulate the iron particles in the earth to levitate, create weapons, or even move iron particles around him in a form of magnetic camouflage. This iron manipulation extends into the human body as well, as he's able to control the iron particles within someone's blood, breaking down the chemical process. This means he can also manipulate the iron in someone's body to create objects, which is how he's able to force Doppio to vomit razor blades. A consequence of this iron manipulation in an enemy's body is that they are subject to a rapid onset iron deficiency anemia. The more and more Metallica uses its iron manipulation on someone, the less the body is able to produce hemoglobin, as these chemical bonds are being broken down. This means the circulatory system is unable to transfer oxygen or waste, resulting in a creeping death. It's a pretty hardcore stand, and Doppio's not really able to fight it. He gets tore up real bad. He does land a few hits on Risotto, but not enough. The only way Doppio is able to get out of this is playing dirty. As mentioned before, our protagonists are also on the island of Sardinia, and as far as they're concerned, Risotto is just as much of an enemy to them as the Dawn. Doppio is able to use this fact to draw their attention toward Risotto, resulting in him getting gunned down by our protagonist while caught unaware. This marks the end of Risotto as well as La Squadra, and unfortunately their efforts are in vain, as they don't even get a Pyrrhic victory against the Dawn. I do feel like Metallica is a good motif for Risotto as well as La Squadra as a whole. Obviously James Hetfield has never been known for his lyrical prowess, but it's more about vibes. Despite being the antagonist for the first half of the story, La Squadra is built to be parallel to our protagonist as they have very similar goals. And in this respect, they are disposable heroes. Risotto is motivating them to fight fire with fire in an effort to find justice for all. As seen in his text-only backstory, Risotto is fueled by a sense of righteous indignation, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the extremely bloody and intense stand fight involving Metallica is parallel to the song Creeping Death. The song is about the plagues of Egypt as described in the biblical Old Testament's Book of Exodus. Now, we're not here for any mamby-pamby Sunday school nonsense. It's super gory, super gruesome, and heavy metal. You can interpret the text as being about vengeance and wrath, and I do believe that parallels well with Risotto, as that is his main motivation throughout Part 5. There's also a lot of other weird little biblical motifs sprinkled here and there throughout Part 5, and I think that's mostly because when Araki visited Italy, he was really inspired and influenced by the Catholic art and architecture on display, and having been to Rome myself, I can tell you that it is indeed super Catholic there. I mean, go figure, that's where the Pope and all his potpourri are. I wonder if Mista could become the Pope with sharpshooting skills like that. Look, anyway, Risotto Nero is a very interesting character within the context of Part 5. While his actions do not resonate a huge amount, it is an interesting parallel to our protagonist. Even though he is the secondary antagonist, he has the same motivations at heart. In respect, he's kind of like a dark reflection of Bruno Bucciolati, who is the capo of our protagonist. He is essentially the deuteragonist of Part 5. They both have very similar characterization, backstories, motivations. They're even both capos within the crime family. However, the thing that really separates them is the fact that Risotto has a death wish. He is very self-destructive in his actions and motivation. I think this is why Risotto is very endearing to fans of the series. Despite being a very short-lived character, he encompasses a lot of the motifs of Part 5, which are all about determination and perseverance in the face of adversity. That determination might be towards a quest of revenge, but that is a very human and very understandable quest.